That's not coming from you. That's woman talk.
Morris talking to all you white Americans about the way black people have been treated in America. Now, I know a lot of you feel guilty, and you should.
Well, let me say about Martin. Martin, first of all, brilliant, funny man. I was delighted to work with him. I only had 3 years, but with the 3 years, I was one of the greatest cats.
What really happened behind the scenes of Martin and Saturday Night Live? Why did Garrett Morris leave these iconic shows, and what truths has he finally revealed? Were the rumors about drama and conflicts true all along?
However, if you would like to relieve your guilt, I'm willing to accept money as a representative victim of 400 years of repression. Send your check or money order to White Guilt Relief Fund.
Garrett Morris, a comedy legend, has spoken out, and the answers may surprise you. What ended his time on these shows, and how did it shape his career? Let's uncover it all.
Will this be shown in Louisiana?
It will be shown all over the world, my brother.
Oh, God, our sheriff is looking in Louisiana right now, okay?
Garrett Isaac Morris, a gem of a man, was born on a chilly day in February 1937 in New Orleans, Louisiana.
I visit my hometown, New Orleans, about a couple of times a year, and I make sure I go there at night.
Growing up under the care of his grandfather, a Southern Baptist preacher, was anything but ordinary. According to Morris, his grandpa's antics were so wild that they pushed him away from Christianity and into the arms of Buddhism. It was the beginning of an exciting and unexpected journey.
I was born the grandson of a Baptist minister whose name was Thomas Phillips, and his wife, my grandmother, Gertrude Phillips. Basically, I'm lucky.
Morris often tells stories about his grandfather. By day, Grandpa was a preacher, talking about walking the straight and narrow. But by night, he was a different man, living a much wilder life. Let's just say he didn't only give sermons. He was also sneaking around for secret meetings. These shocking tales sent young Morris running far from religion and straight into Buddhism, where he found peace. From a young age, Morris had a passion for music. His grandfather noticed his talent and encouraged him to join the church choir at just 4 years old. But this was only the beginning. Morris was enrolled in the prestigious Pres Juli Art School of Music. By 1956, he had earned a scholarship to attend a music workshop at Tanglewood. And in 1958, he won the Tanglewood Conductors Award, proof of his incredible talent.
The choir?
Oh, my God, he had me singing at the age of 4. Because I had one of those Vienna choir voices, right? So I was singing first tenor in a quartet.
After finishing his education at Dillard University, Morris decided to pursue music full-time. Why not? He had the skills and the drive. One of his early roles was in a musical called Ain't Supposed to Die a Natural Death, and he did an amazing job. This was just the start of his career, and his talents continued to shine. But Morris wasn't just about music. In the 1970s, he decided to try acting. His first film role was in the black comedy Where's Papa?, where he played a character named Garrett. He didn't stop there. He appeared in several other films. However, his big break came in 1975 when he landed a role on the legendary TV show Saturday Night Live, SNL, which aired on NBC.
Morris talking to all you white Americans about the way black people have been treated in America. Now, I know a lot of you feel guilty, and you should.
Morris was hired by SNL producer Lorne Michaels, not just as a writer, but also to help find other black actors for the show. Back then, SNL was trying to be edgy and different, but it also had its share of problems. One of these problems was the racism that still existed behind the scenes. Morris himself has said that the writers at the time, including people like Tom Schiller and Al Franken, weren't always easy to work with because of their biases. But despite this, he always praised Lorne Michaels for not being racist and for wanting to give a black performer a chance to be seen on TV at night, even though many others didn't want that. Morris's first big moment on SNL came when Lorne Michaels invited him into the green room for a meeting early in the show's production. When Morris entered, he was surprised to see Michaels watching Cooley High, a black movie where Morris played an important role as a history teacher. It turned out that SNL stars Gilda Radner, Lorraine Newman, and Jane Curtin had recommended the film to Michaels. This led to Morris being asked to audition for the cast of SNL, and he went from being a writer to a performer on the show. However, Morris's time on SNL wasn't without struggles. He admitted that he made many mistakes and was battling a drug problem during those years. In fact, drug use was a big issue on the show at the time, with many people involved in it. But even with his personal problems, Morris was trying to make the best of the situation, especially when it came to his roles. He often fought against being put into stereotypical black roles. For example, when he saw a skit with a doctor character, he asked to play the role. However, Lorne Michaels told him that audiences might be thrown by seeing a black doctor. This was difficult for Morris, who had grown up in New Orleans, where black doctors and professionals were common. Morris did eventually get a chance to shine on SNL.
And if you would like to relieve your guilt, I'm willing to accept money as a representative victim of 400 years of repression. Send your check or money order to White Guilt Relief Fund.
His most popular character was Chico Escuela, a Dominican baseball player who would say, "Baseball been very good to me." He also played a deaf interpreter on the Weekend Update desk, where he simply repeated the news louder instead of signing it. Even though many of his roles were stereotypical, Morris worked hard to add depth and intelligence to them. Sadly, Morris's time on SNL was often marked by his feeling that the show's writers didn't appreciate him beyond being a black utility player for roles. Many black performers who came after him expressed their worries about being used the same way, and Eddie Murphy in particular made it clear that he saw Morris as a symbol of racial typecasting on the show. This was painful for Morris, but he is still proud of the work he did. He feels that, in his own way, he helped pave the way for black performers on SNL, creating a space for non-white actors to be seen and heard on the show. Nowadays, Morris thinks SNL is trying too hard to please everyone, losing the edge it once had.
On camera?
Now I gotta get into my dope using days. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, you are.
He and I both were very much into.
Morris struggled with a serious cocaine addiction for 40 years. This addiction caused him to make many bad decisions, which affected his career and personal life. Even after leaving SNL in 1980, Garrett's addiction didn't stop. He continued to battle with drugs for years, even though he was still getting roles in popular TV shows. His story is one of struggle, but also one of hope and recovery. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that Garrett finally got sober and stopped using cocaine. He says that going to Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, helped him a lot. They give you a sponsor, and that guy calls you all day long, but it works, Garrett explains. Within 6 months to a year, I felt like I could stay sober forever. Looking back, he admits that he made many bad choices during his addiction, saying, "I was a coke fiend." He also notes that during his time on SNL, the show had a major drug problem, which made it harder to stay clean. After 99 episodes, Morris moved on from SNL to one-off parts on sitcoms like The Love Boat, Who's the Boss, and Married, with Children. And while he'd often joined forces with other SNL alums, Morris only worked with Michaels once after leaving the show on the 1993 Coneheads film.
That's not coming from you. That's woman talk.
By then, Morris had already moved to Martin, the Martin Lawrence small-screen vehicle that has been described as the I Love Lucy of black TV. Morris played Stan, the skinflint radio station boss that time forgot. Garrett has always had nice things to say about his time on the show. He worked with an amazing cast, including Martin Lawrence, Tisha Campbell, Tichina Arnold, Tommy Ford, and Carl Payne. Garrett even became close friends with Jonathan G., the white actor who played the radio station engineer.
And one of my best friends to this day, the white guy, one of my BFFs right now, Jonathan Grimes.
To this day, people still call Garrett Stan because of the role. He says he feels grateful for the opportunity Martin Lawrence gave him. Garrett describes Martin as a brilliant and funny man. Although Garrett was only on the show for 3 years, he looks back at it as one of the best times in his career. The gig was going well until something shocking happened. He was shot during an attempted robbery in real life. Strangely enough, the show later wrote a storyline about his character being on the run, which seemed to reflect his real-life struggles.
Well, let me say about Martin. Martin, first of all, brilliant, funny man. I was delighted to work with him. I only had 3 years, but with the 3 years, I was the one.
So how did Garrett get shot? He explained it happened when he was visiting a friend in New York. His friend worked on cars, cleaning and polishing them. Garrett went upstairs to see his friend, but the friend was busy talking to someone. Garrett decided to go downstairs to get a drink. Garrett knew to stay alert because he grew up in a tough neighborhood. At the time, he was 57 years old and about 5 feet 6 inches tall. He was aware that being small and older could make him an easy target, but he still felt confident. Maybe it was because he had skills. Garrett was a first-degree black belt, and that training came back to him during the attack.
He was about 5'10", something like that. 6 feet tall and maybe 20 years of age. Now, what he didn't realize was, although I'm old and 57.
As he went downstairs, 2 men approached him. At first, Garrett didn't think much of it and walked past them. Unfortunately, they turned around and came back. Garrett didn't realize he was in danger until it was too late. The details of what happened next are frightening. One of the guys, who was about 20 years old at that time, grabbed him. Garrett, thinking fast, used his martial arts skills to embarrass the guy. What Garrett didn't realize at first was that this man had a gun. When Garrett turned around, he saw the weapon and immediately tried to calm the guy down, saying, "Hold up, man." The funny thing was that that event took place because of a leather jacket. Garrett had a unique jacket with an Africa design that caught the robber's eye. Garrett wasn't sure if the robber knew he was Stan from Martin, but some people nearby were shouting, "Hey, Stan!" Garrett still wonders if being recognized played a role in what happened. The robber demanded the jacket. But when he grabbed the attacker, things turned violent. The man was already upset. He thought Garrett was challenging him. The guy shot Garrett, hitting his arm, stomach, and back. The injuries were serious. Garrett had to deal with a colostomy bag for 8 months. And after 10 surgeries, the doctors finally removed the bullet lodged in his back. The bullet hit him in a way that could have been fatal. Thankfully, it didn't hit his heart, but it left him with injuries that changed his life forever. Doctors told Garrett he wouldn't be able to walk again. At first, that seemed true, but Garrett surprised everyone. From 1994 until about 2020, he was able to walk. Now he uses a walker or a cane to get around. Despite these challenges, Garrett feels blessed. He often says, "God is good," because he knows things could have been much worse. Garrett later found out the shooter's name was Tiny Duke. While walking in a park, someone recognized him and said, "We got him." Garrett learned that some fans who were behind bars didn't like what Tiny Duke had done to him. Even though he went through such a scary event, Garrett kept his sense of humor. He joked about how, if he had known the guy had a gun from the start, he wouldn't have tried anything. Garrett said he would have given up his money, car, and even his clothes if it meant staying safe. Till date, he believes his survival is a miracle and doesn't take life for granted.
I'm going to have to save the show myself.
The news shocked everyone when Morris was attacked and needed surgery. As he lay in the hospital, fighting for his life, something became very clear to him. No one cared about him at that time. He had a role in Martin's. His co-stars didn't offer any help, which, okay, maybe we can understand since co-stars aren't always friends. But here's where things get strange. While Morris was in the hospital, the producer of the show, Martin Lawrence, decided to fire him. Morris had already gone through 4 major surgeries, as earlier mentioned, and his life was hanging in the balance. Yet instead of support, he received a script saying his character, Stan, would be sent to China. Imagine that. While he was fighting for his life, the show decided to kick him off. This was a tough moment for Morris, but he had 2 choices: become sad or get angry. He chose anger, but not for long. Morris had seen worse things at the beginning of his career and knew he had to keep moving. Even though he was fired from Martin, Morris didn't let it hold him down for long. He quickly got another chance and was hired for the Jamie Foxx show. But let's not forget, throughout his career, Morris faced a lot of racism, as already mentioned earlier. There were times when he and other black actors had to stay in hotels far away from white people. Once, he was even arrested just for walking down the street. All of this hurt, but being let go from Martin felt like a slap in the face. He had been part of the show for 2 seasons, only to be kicked off without a real reason. To make matters worse, Martin Lawrence, his co-star, told everyone that he had visited Morris in the hospital and cried for him. This revelation only added to the confusion surrounding their relationship. Years later, when Morris celebrated his 50th birthday, the situation took another turn. During the celebration, Tisha Campbell, who played Gina on Martin, shared a video of her singing happy birthday to him on Instagram. Many fans noticed that Martin Lawrence wasn't there, And some even wondered why Jamie Foxx wasn't present either. Some fans speculated that Martin didn't attend because of the firing incident. One comment suggested that Martin might have avoided showing up because he was angry about Morris getting fired while he was in the hospital. However, it's important to note that Morris didn't attend Martin's ceremony in 2023 either, which made some fans question whether there was still tension between the two. Despite this, it seems Morris has moved on from any bad feelings towards Martin. When he received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, he mentioned Martin in his speech, calling him one of the best comedians in the business. This shows that Morris doesn't hold any grudges against Martin.
Well, let me say about Martin. Martin, first of all, brilliant, funny man. I was delighted to work with him. I only had 3 years, but with the 3 years, I was the one.
So why did Martin skip out on Morris's event? Was it really about the past issues, or is there something else at play? We may never know for sure, but it's clear that Morris has learned to forgive and is focused on the future. Still, we are thankful that Morris was part of one of the best sitcom casts in history. His contribution to Martin will never be forgotten.
That's the only thing I can say to somebody, is believe in yourself. Never ever think you're gonna lose. Always believe you're gonna win.
Garrett has been in the spotlight for decades, and even though he started with a big role, he's shown how staying in the game can lead to lasting success. After starring in the Jamie Foxx show, Garrett found his way into many smaller roles. But that didn't stop him from shining. He got a role in the movie The Long Shots, starring Ice Cube, and later in the popular show Family Guy. But one of his biggest successes came in 2011 when he joined the cast of Two Broke Girls. He played Earl, a funny and outspoken diner cashier who still lives in his past glory days. The show lasted for 138 episodes, longer than many of his other roles, and it paid him better than any TV job he had before. Even though he wasn't the main character, his presence on the show made a big impact. Garrett's career kept growing, and he even made guest appearances on other TV shows. In 1998, he was himself on the show Space Ghost Coast to Coast. A few years later, he appeared on Saturday Night Live in a funny sketch with actress Brittany Murphy. He also showed up in Family Guy, where he played a quirky headmaster at a school for people with hearing problems. As his acting career took off, Garrett also turned to his love for comedy. He opened the Downtown Comedy Club in Los Angeles and became its host. His hard work was recognized by the city of Los Angeles in 2007. Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa honored him for his contributions to the Black community and declared February 9th as Garrett Morris Day. Garrett's acting career didn't stop at TV shows. In 2008, he played Reverend Pratt in The Long Shots, a family comedy starring Ice Cube and Keke Palmer. He also appeared in commercials for Nintendo DS and Miller Lite in 2009 and 2010. These commercials brought him into more homes and kept him in the public eye. In 2011, Garrett had a small but memorable role as a Catholic priest in Shameless, but his biggest role that year was as Earl in Two Broke Girls, which brought him back to TV in a big way. There was even a lawsuit against him in 2012, with a company claiming Garrett didn't pay part of his income as agreed. However, the show's team confirmed that Garrett had actually paid. Garrett kept making appearances in films and TV shows. In 2015, he made a fun cameo in Ant-Man, referencing an old SNL sketch where he played the same character. A year later, he appeared on Celebrity Family Feud alongside his family, going head-to-head with actor Alfonso Ribeiro. Garrett also showed up in the hit show This Is Us in 2018 and made another appearance in a Black Lady sketch show in 2019.
But
Yes, she
to
is.
this day, Richard is my #1 monologuist. Yet when he came to the show, I'm gonna blame cocaine and what it does.
Garrett had a chance to work with one of the biggest names in comedy, Richard Pryor, but things didn't go as he expected. Garrett shared in an interview that when Richard came to the show they worked on together, he didn't treat Garrett the way he thought he would. Richard, who was well known for his wild side, was deep into cocaine at that time. Garrett believes that the drug had an effect on Richard's behavior. He said that Richard didn't treat him the way he thought he would, and instead Richard brought his own team with him. Garrett wasn't well known at the time. While people on the East Coast knew who he wasn't famous on the West Coast or the South. Garrett explained that he didn't realize how important his role was at that time. He said he was being treated like a nobody, even though he had a big role on the show. Later on, Richard offered Garrett a cameo role in one of his movies called Critical Condition. But Garrett pointed out that Richard never apologized for the way he treated him earlier. Garrett didn't mind though, because that's when they became friends. Despite the rough start, Garrett and Richard ended up getting along well. Garrett is dealing with arthritis now because of gunshot wounds he suffered in the past, as earlier mentioned. Over time, the pain got worse, and it became harder for him to move around. As a result, Garrett now needs a walker or cane to help him walk properly. Now fast forward to 2024. Garrett Morris is living a comfortable life. Through years of hard work, he has made a name for himself in the entertainment industry. Garrett is now worth around $4 million. He didn't just make money from acting and comedy though. He's also done voiceover work, which made him even more money. On top of that, Garrett got into real estate, which helped him build his wealth even more. Garrett's story is one of perseverance. Even though he didn't always get the respect he deserved early in his career, he kept going. He stayed in the game, worked hard, and now he's enjoying the fruits of his labor. He's made a name for himself as one of the best in comedy, and he's still going strong today. In the end, Garrett Morris's journey shows us that success doesn't always come easy. There can be tough moments along the way, but if you keep pushing forward, things can turn out great.